Good afternoon and welcome to today's FM Academy, partnering with IT for successful deployment of FileMaker solutions. I am Tim Neudecker. I am your host and instructor today, and I will be walking you through the process of working with large-scale IT with FileMaker Pro. Whoops. Before we get started, tell you a little bit about FileMaker Academy. We are a consortium of 7 FileMaker Platinum level development companies spread across the United States, and we are bringing you monthly training seminars for free. Once this session is over, it will be posted to YouTube, so if you missed anything, you can follow up there. But you can also go back and see many of the presentations that we've done over the last 3 years. A little bit about Kyo Logic. We have been building and supporting FileMaker solutions in the Northeast since 2003. We're, of course, platinum level. And we work from New York to Boston. And one of our strong points is that all of our developers are FileMaker certificate. Myself, I've been developing FileMaker Pro for 23 plus years. I actually started out in IT. Well, I was IT and the developer, all the way up through being a developer within a large IT company, and then branching out to an independent consultant, and then working with Kyo Logic. I'm certified in every version of FileMaker Pro. I'm a past FileMaker Pro DevCon speaker. And just the last month, I won second place, which is first of the losers, in the FileMaker Annual Developers Cup, which was a whole lot of fun. First place was won by another FileMaker Academy member, Skeleton Keys Chris. Congratulations, Chris. I'm coming for you next year. If you have questions during the presentation, please enter them in the question box in the GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar control panel. I will not be able to see your questions during the presentation, but at the end, I will review them and answer as many as possible. If I don't get to your question during the presentation, please feel free to email me or follow up on my blog posts. So today we're going to talk about partnering with IT. And a lot of folks have probably never encountered large IT, and those who have probably scratched their heads going, gee, how could I have made that encounter go better? The first thing we have to figure out is, why does IT tend to resist FileMaker Pro? Well, there's a lot of history with FileMaker Pro and IT, and we need to get past that. FileMaker Pro is not what it used to be. Also, IT is not what it used to be. A lot of FileMaker Pro developers, when they go in and work with a company, tend to view IT almost in a hostile manner. And we have to remember, IT is not our enemy. They're our partners. They're the people who are going to make our applications successful. If we don't have IT's support, there is no way we can have a successful deployment within a company or a work group. Many IT departments may think FileMaker Pro is an old, outdated tool. They may have encountered FileMaker Pro back in the 4, 5, or 6 days when FileMaker Server wasn't even a service. It was an application that ran on a workstation, not even a proper server machine. So we need to work on educating IT and bringing them up to speed with the new modern FileMaker Pro platform. This is a great quote from Adriana, CIO of Dell, from just a few months ago. The consumer is no longer patient to wait for IT to get through their requirements definition, design definition, technical design, coding, and testing. Business is changing too rapidly for these kind of processes to take place for small, simple applications. And when I say small, simple applications, I'm talking about the workgroup application for the 20 to 100 users, which are right at the sweet spot of FileMaker Pro development. IT likes to work the way they do with larger solutions that may be enterprise-wide with thousands of users. And when they try to apply those techniques to smaller solutions that need to move quickly, the moment is lost. The department has found other solutions, and the department tends to do that on their own. And that has created a new form of user or developer or power user over the years. And Gartner has termed these people citizen developers. These are the knowledge experts within a company who develop their own solutions. And in the past, they've done it with Excel and tools of single user. And now they're doing it with FileMaker Pro and other web-based cloud tools. And sometimes they're doing this with IT sanctions. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just doing it on their own. In the past, the end user application development has typically been limited to single user workgroup solutions built with tools like Excel and Access. However, today, the end users can build departmental, enterprise, and even public applications using shared services. That last sentence in the Gartner definition of a citizen's developer, departmental, enterprise, and public-facing applications, describes FileMaker Pro to a T. That is what we build with FileMaker Pro. And we really need to let IT know that we have the perfect tool for making those kinds of solutions. But we still get this resistance, this tension between IT and the citizen developers. And a lot of that comes from the citizen developers are not familiar with IT methodologies and how they want to do their workflows and managing development and deployment. And it builds a lot of tension. So that's where we as developers can help these citizen developers get their solutions successfully deployed with IT. So IT knows how to manage Excel and Word documents with sharers and backups, as well as managing large applications. And they provide lots of tools, sharing platforms. They provide training for all these tools. But the users want more. The citizen users want to develop true multi-user applications. They don't want to live off of a shared Excel workbook. They also want to tie in to other corporate assets, do data mining, do reporting. They don't want to have to do double entry into their applications with data they're entering into other corporate systems. And they also want to support rapid changes because new business opportunities happen very quickly, and departments may not be able to wait 6 months, 9 months to get an application out the door to help them support a new business opportunity. So how can we work with IT to do this? The first thing we can do is provide good communication. Help the citizen developer talk with IT and help translate IT's needs and requirements to the citizen developer so that they don't look like they're just roadblocks. That IT is not just trying to stop and slow down the show, because they're not. They have very specific reasons for all of these processes, all of the paperwork they have to do. A lot of it comes back to security and making sure applications will not interrupt other applications. But also, we have to make sure that the solutions we deploy with FileMaker Pro implement proper design, proper testing, and proper deployment. So how do we educate about the new FileMaker Pro? Some of the key points we can bring forward to IT to help educate this. We can talk about how FileMaker Pro is now fully Windows certified, how well it works with Active and Open Directory, how it helps IT consolidate data, removing these piles of spreadsheets on local workstations that may not be getting backed up because the user isn't copying them to the network share every night. We can talk about how it's cross-platform, works well with iOS, macOS, and Windows. And the iOS is becoming much, much more important in large corporations. They're starting to allow employees to bring their own devices to work and hook them up to the corporate networks. And IT is seeing a problem with that because users are sending these spreadsheets full of critical private information to their iOS devices, and then the user loses their phone and they lose that data. And that puts IT at risk. So they're very concerned about that. And we can talk about how FileMaker Pro can help prevent that by allowing the user to access the database via their mobile device. They never store the data on that device, so IT can keep it secure. FileMaker Pro supports very good security now with encryption at rest and SSL encryption of network traffic. These are some of the things we can bring to light to IT to help them understand that FileMaker Pro is a good network citizen. It plays well with the other technologies on the network. Proper UI design is very important in your applications. I am not going to go into it in detail today. If you attended the FileMaker Pro Developers Conference, I would say a good 30% of the presentations at DevCon were on proper UI design. The community is taking this seriously, and there are many FM Academy sessions you can watch at YouTube that will cover these topics as well. So let's talk about proper testing and deployment. This is one of the largest thorns in IT's side. They see FileMaker Pro developers come in and log into live files and make changes to live data, and it scares them to death. There is no history. There is no use testing. How do those changes change other systems, especially if we talk to other systems within the corporate infrastructure? So we need to get out of the habit of developing on live files. We need to follow proper development practices. We also need, as FileMaker developers, to start documenting what we do. We need to create release notes and help files and feature lists. And many FileMaker developers completely skip these things, that they will make changes and just assume the users will see them and learn how to use them. So we need to document versions and have version control and feature lists so that IT knows what's going on with the application. We also need to help train IT to troubleshoot the solution and help users so that the call desks know how to respond to questions about the solution. And we do this by providing simple one-page documents that can be used as scripts to help diagnose issues. If your program cannot export, try XYZ. Maybe your files are locked, disk is locked, and so on. We also make sure IT is familiar with setting up and editing user accounts and groups so that we work well with the Active Directory if we're using that. And then if we're not using Active Directory, they know how to disable accounts for employees who are no longer with the company. And also make sure IT knows how to test connectivity so that they can troubleshoot network issues to determine if they are truly network issues or application issues, and they need to call you as a developer in to help with an application issue. So I talked about not developing on live files, and believe it or not, I could feel lots of hair standing up on people's backs because that scares a lot of FileMaker developers. If you don't have separate files, you can make mistakes, cause trouble to users, and it's hard to document the changes you make, as well as control what's released to the users. So by keeping a separate deployment environment, a testing environment, and a production environment, we can manage the change and the flow of new features and code, as well as the testing. If you don't have the resources to set up 3 servers to do this, you can always use the FileMaker Advanced tool to rename files and store them on the same server. I don't think this is a best practice, though. We typically have 2 servers for most deployments for clients, although the best practice is 4. The 2 servers I like to deploy are a user acceptance testing server and a production server on site. And then the development server becomes one of my in-house Kyo Logic servers, where we will do the development in-house and then send the development code to the user acceptance testing server for the testing committee and people to do testing with. And when that is approved, that code is moved from the UAT server to the production server. And then there's also a disaster recovery server, though I think I only have 2 large installations who actually use disaster recovery servers. And these are clones of the production server that receive a daily backup. And should the production server go down, we can easily switch to the disaster recovery server. Provide and review with IT the best practices for setting up a FileMaker server. Make sure they understand the differences between a FileMaker server and a database server. FileMaker servers are really application servers in IT's eyes. When we say database server, IT starts thinking about SQL servers and server replication and all the various load balancing and other things they need to do to that server and imaging they need to do. And FileMaker doesn't require that. So we want to make sure they understand it's an application server, not a database server. And when IT actually deploys a new environment, a new server, be sure to verify that antivirus software skips the live files, all of the best practices that need to be done. Go through it with IT using a screen share or on site with them, and make sure all of the backups are functioning properly and settings are done. We had a interesting situation, probably 4 years ago with a very large IT division, and we would set up the server, go through it with the server admin, and everything was set up beautifully. And then a few days later, they would start having damaged and corrupted files. And of course, the finger pointing started at FileMaker and at IT, and we would go through the server with the admin again, and we would find that the virus software was scanning the live files and damaging them. So we would turn it off, shake our finger, talk about how important that is. And a few days later, the files would be damaged again, and we'd go back and the virus software was turned back on. What we did not know is that a new security application had been installed on the network that goes through every server each night and resets any changes that don't follow the corporate rules to the virus software. So all of the exceptions we had set up were being wiped out when this nightly process ran, and inadvertently damage would happen to the files. So what we learned is we had to go to a higher level server admin within IT who could make exceptions and put exceptions into these nightly scripts so that the FileMaker application server could be set up correctly. And these are things we have to work out with IT so that everything moves smoothly. And when we're working with IT, it's really good to help provide documentation to IT. Not just teaching them how to start the server, because the person you teach more than likely will not be the person to actually do the stopping and starting. Another person will be doing it, working from the other user's notes. So we like to provide 1-page, 2-page documents to do common tasks that may be needed. Stopping, starting the server, restoring from a backup, doing updating, because remember, we're not allowing auto updates, so they have to know how to test auto updates in the UAT environment, make sure that they don't damage the files, they don't damage FileMaker or anything of that nature, and then they can schedule and perform those changes in the live environment. A sample of one of these documents, and I'll provide this as a PDF in a blog post after the session today, this is our server starting and stopping documentation that we provide to IT that helps them stop and start the server. And it's a simple 2-page document with the steps they follow through. We tend to customize the document for each client so that it has their proper IP addresses and admin names, and they keep track of their own passwords. We don't embed those in the documents. But by providing these documents, it saves them a lot of time of having to train new admins or after-hours support staff to do these simple tasks. So it's very helpful, and this is the kind of thing IT really likes to get. So I can still feel some of the developers in the background cringing with this idea of having multiple servers, and how do I manage this? So say we have the typical deployment of 3 servers. We have a development server in-house at our development firm. The client has a user acceptance testing server where they do all testing. No development is ever done on the user acceptance server. It's only used for remote users to connect and test the system, and for IT to test OS updates before moving them to production. And then we have the production server. And in many cases, I have never seen or logged into the production environment. And IT really likes that, because it means their data is safe and secure. They don't have to expose information to me as a developer in the production environment. I never see real client information. I never see real budgets. I only ever see testing data in development and UAT. But how do we do that? In the old school FileMaker, if we were to move code from one set of data to another, the developer would save a clone of the FileMaker files, open the new files and the old files at the same time, finding all records, importing data, resetting serial numbers. And if this is a large solution, this could mean an 8-9 hour job, usually done after hours. And when you're working after hours on a long job, mistakes are made, tables are missed, records are skipped by mistake, serial numbers are reset incorrectly, and these can cause serious issues in a production environment, especially when you've built a wonderful solution that has become mission critical that many people depend on. So how do we solve that? What we do, we like to create a migrator file. A migrator file is a simple UI file made in FileMaker Pro that has scripts in it that move the data from one set of files to another. It has 4 basic functions. It takes the new code, saves clones of that code so it has no data. It imports all the data from the live files into the new data, into the new developed files, and resets all the serial numbers while doing. It then runs a set of scripts that may be set up in it to do any post-import data transformations. Say during development, we created a new flag field that needs to be pre-populated with a replace. The developer, when they create that field, would write a simple 2-line script, 3-line script that would do that. They would drop it into the folder of scripts to be run after migration, and they get run automatically. And then the system saves a compacted copy of the new files ready to be sent to the new environment. This requires some effort to build and code, but it's well within the realm of a medium-level FileMaker developer. It's not difficult to program. It takes about 15 minutes per table plus a few hours of overhead the first time you create it for a solution. But after that, every time you do a migration for a different set of files, it takes 15 to 20 minutes to reconfigure it to add new fields into import orders or new tables into import scripts if they're new. And so you can then, anytime you need to do a go live or a move from one environment to another, you can do it very quickly. But the real benefit of setting up this migrator, it's more than just the time saving. It allows for an actual testing of the go live procedure. It also allows IT to manage the go live event. So you can give them this migrator and they can take the files off of the user acceptance server that have been approved and tested. They can take the live data off the production server, put them into this migrator, hit the button, and let it run. Usually, most migrators we write take about 15 to 20 minutes to run, though we have some on larger systems that can take up to 14, 15 hours to run. Imagine doing that by hand. And then they can put the files live. And once again, myself as a developer, I never see or touch the production environment. It's completely in IT's hands, and they get to work with it. It also means migration is very repeatable. It's very easy to do. The same migrator that moves you from development to UAT is used by IT to move you from UAT to production. So when you do your go to UAT, you actually get to test the migrator as well as test the code you've written for those new features. And this is great. It prevents all kinds of errors. It lets IT know how long a system will be down during a migration. It allows everything to go smoothly. And that is the number one way to have IT love you, is not have problems. Don't be a thorn in their side. When data goes live, it goes live. And with each migration, they're receiving documentation of what are the new features, what changes were made, what departments should be notified about the changes, and they can take care of all of that for you. A quick screenshot of our migrator. As you can see, ours is pretty simple. It has some simple directions for IT, and they literally open this file up and they hit one button, migrate data, and it does its job. And after the migration, it gives them a nice report that shows them the number of records and what serial numbers were changed, and it works wonderfully. I sleep so much better knowing that migrations are going to work well. Sometimes, though, you'll get working with an IT department that you just can't get a FileMaker server into. And there are other options now. You can use cloud hosting. You can take your production server, and if IT will allow their data outside their firewall, you can place that data on a cloud server with a simple monthly fee and use it that way. You could even host the UAT or the prod environments up there. You just have to be sure you're not violating any corporate rules about data security being on third-party servers. It won't be as fast as a local server, but it's better than no server. And you can show reliability and the return on investment of FileMaker with a cloud server for your first deployment and use that credibility you build up to say, hey, it'll be even better if we can put the server in your data center. So you still need to get IT support because your users will need access on port 8443, which they should probably already have, and 5003, so they can make outbound connections to this FileMaker Pro server. But cloud serving is a viable option. So what have we learned today? Well, we've learned that we need to educate IT about the current state of the FileMaker Pro platform. Let them know that FileMaker really is a good network citizen, especially when it comes to security and reliability. We handle all of the buzzwords, and we can handle all of the security to meet their needs. We need to work with IT to help educate them on how to properly set up a server. Let them know that this is not an SQL database server. It's not a file server. It is a FileMaker server and therefore has its own set of configuration, and we can help them with that. They don't have to expend a lot of effort to learn how to set up a new server. We will help them do that. We also need to work with IT to make sure that we support their best practices in their environments. And that usually means going to a development, testing, and prod environment, and that we're not going to develop on live files. But by working with IT instead of against IT, we can have much better deployments in large companies. And one of the big benefits, when you get your first successful deployment within a large company, you will find that once IT trusts you and they say, hey, these guys do a good job, they work well, they follow our rules, they don't make us look bad, they will then start recommending you to other departments who have work group solution needs as well. And you can start to move sideways within a company supporting other departments and other divisions. And nothing's greater than having more successes within one company. So once again, if you have any questions, please enter them into the question area. I will be answering those in just a minute. If you wish to get in touch with me, I am Tim Neudecker. I can be reached at info@kyologic.com, on Twitter at Kyo Logic LLC. We have our blog, and this is the address where you'll be able to download that sample restart documentation I was talking about. In fact, I think that blog post is already live. And we're also on Facebook. The next FM Academy class will be presented by Jerry Salem from IT Solutions in Philly, and it will be a simple user feedback system for your FileMaker solution. And that will be next month at 2 p.m. You can register probably by the end of this week on FileMakerAcademy.com. If you need any assistance or help with anything FileMaker related, please contact one of the FM Academy members. Here is their list with their contact information. I'll leave this up for a second. And what I'd like to do now is stop the screen share and start answering some of the questions that have come in. Okay. So let's find our first question. Okay, our first question is, what is UAT? A UAT server is a user acceptance testing server, and it is where we move our development code for users to test and practice and poke at. We do no development on a UAT server. It is only used for testing. And the code that goes to the production environment is the code that is on the UAT server. So while people are testing in the UAT environment, as a developer, I can continue development in the development environment without fear of breaking something that the testers are testing. Next question is, what are your thoughts on using the separation model instead of a migrator? I am not a big fan of the separation model personally. I've tried it, and very few deployments that I have done, well, close to zero, have ever not required schema changes with new tables, new field definitions, new calculations. And the problem with doing the separation, you still need to move that data file schema changes over. And I think the migrator eliminates that need. FileMaker has given us all of the tools in the scripting engine to create a tool that will do the migrations for us. Where the old separation model, the idea was you could just swap out a UI file and users would receive new layouts, new scripts, new reports, and the data would stay live, so it was very fast. And then you would manually open the data file and add any new columns that may be required of the new UI. And this was great, but it still requires the developer to be part of the migration process. And I really like the developer not being part of that. I like giving that process to IT and letting them manage the move from each environment to the next and handling the updates. Will I be posting example files? I don't think I have any other example files to post for this session. Somebody's asking for more details about the migrator. The migrator we use is a Kyo Logic proprietary file that we've been developing over the last 4 or 5 years within Kyo Logic. I received the idea originally from FM Refresh, a product that is on the market that is pretty much a migrator that you can buy and use right off the shelf if you don't wish to develop your own. And I believe that's created by Goya. So here's the next one is, do I regularly tell a client they'll need to pay 3 to 4 times the cost for FileMaker server for all of these servers? Yes, I do. When you're dealing with large IT, the cost of a FileMaker server is pennies. And usually with large deployments, we try to push the company into what's called a site license agreement, which is similar to a VLA, volume license agreement from FileMaker, but it allows them to deploy any combination of servers and clients and advanced product as well. So we really like the site license, and IT loves the idea of being properly licensed and be able to spin up as many servers as they want. And IT is very open to spinning up servers these days thanks to virtual servers. It's very easy for IT to partition and provision a small chunk of space for these servers. Okay, since I don't like the separation, how many tables do I prefer in a FileMaker database file? I don't think I have a preference on a number of tables. We have solutions literally with hundreds of tables in one file and solutions with 5. We do like to break up our solutions into multi-file solutions, usually 5 or 6, depending on modules. So we may have a accounting module over here, a production module over here, a shipping module over there, and those modules contain the UI, the scripts, and the tables needed to perform those functions. So we go more for a functional separation than from a data UI separation. And that was the last of my questions. I thank everybody for their time today. Again, this presentation will be posted on YouTube so you can listen again. And have a pleasant day. Please go sign up for the next FM Academy next month. Thank you.